I like the hat.
That's it. Is it okay? Is it okay, Morrow?
Amazing.
All right.
I don't have a hat. My hair will be like that.
Well, it's disguising, the coronal hair.
I have to stop eating. I had like this candy that I got addicted to it.
Which kind is it? Maybe I should get addicted to it as well.
It's called milk, like that, milk something.
Oh, Milka.
I love it. I love milk, so.
There you go.
I see that you did your bachelor in George Mason. I was a faculty there.
Seriously? Oh, a nice point of connection. Yeah, great.
Until 2010, and then
Yeah, no, I go back, of course. I graduated in 81. Yeah.
And then you went to Colorado,
And then went to Colorado, where my family had its origins. My parents met and courted, married in Colorado, and had lived there much of their lives. And I was conceived there, but then born in New York State. So all I wanted to do is get back to Colorado.
And then you ended up in England. I
ended up in England. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. There at the Institute for Astronomy, and that was eye-opening. There's more to my story than I'm going to reveal today.
Oh, that's great. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I have to feel when the time is right for the fuller story, but there's a rich story, that I'll share today nonetheless.
That's great.
I love what you're doing, by the way. I love this humanizing of heliophysicists, and we
are trying, right? There is nothing like that. I don't like. Yeah,
but we're trying to do something like that, and you'll see in my presentation I'll call out
lovely
affinity between us. Yes.
It's so needed, right? A dearth of human connection for me it's a back of my story always, right?
Yeah, we all have stories, and I, sometimes I felt on the cusp, but then I talk to younger women and I see that we're still working on it.
Oh, yeah. My sister is also a professor, and we talk a lot. She's an engineer. There is so much similarities. Okay. I just looked at the time. It's 2:02.
Oh yeah, we could talk forever. Yeah.
Okay. So Nick, do I need to do anything, or we can just start already, right? I think you already called people up.
I think you are. Yep, we are.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're recording, and you're
right.
Good.
Oh boy, our conversation.
Oh boy, and you know what is good? That all these webinars ended up in our website and YouTube, and I hear a lot from people, including NASA headquarters folks, that go back and listen to us. So welcome to the last installment of the coffee time. I have a coffee to chat with Cherilynn Morrow about her personal trajectory, and also hear from her about activities for the Eclipse. We're very excited. Let me just give a brief intro about who she is and about SHIELD, and let the floor for you. So she got a bachelor degree in physics from my previous university, George Mason, and back in 81, and then did a PhD in Colorado in the astrophysical planetary atmospheric science in 88. She started in the NCAR in the HAO, and ended up as a postdoc in the Institute of Astronomy in Cambridge in England. She was also, just skipping, she was a professor of physics and astronomy at George State University. She was also project director of SET Institute. That is an interesting tidbit I was reading, and a director of education and outreach for the Space Science Institute. She is widely known as an educational leader, so we are hoping to hear more about that. And what I will do really quickly, share my screen, And usually what I do at the beginning of the webinars is just show a couple of slides about what this initiative is. The SHIELD webinar is under one of the drive centers funded by NASA. We're very grateful for that. And the drive behind it is to study the heliosphere. And I like to put it in a context that we are the only known habitable astrosphere. Every single star out there is engulfed in a cocoon called astrospheres. And we have an opportunity studying our own heliosphere to study up and close a habitable one with in situ data and also remote. But if we want to understand the connection between astrospheres and life, we better understand the shielding properties of the heliosphere. We created this snazzy video that have the drive the whole history here, that nowadays the heliosphere engulf all the planets and protect us from galactic cosmic rays that come from the galaxy, dust particles. And we also think that in the past, maybe the heliosphere was not that big. So it's a challenge to try to understand the heliosphere of today, and we would like to extend it also to the past. Okay, SHIELD stand for solar wind and hydrogen ion charge exchange and large-scale dynamics. You can see the picture of our kickoff meeting on the right. It's more than 40 scientists spread out in several institutes across US, and also we have very important collaborators internationally. And you can check our website, shielddrivecenter.com, and you will see all sorts of interesting things, including little videos from each of the scientists telling their own trajectory and their own connection with SHIELD. Here is just a diagram, and I'm not going to go through the whole science, but just to show the complexity of trying to understand the heliosphere and how these different physical phenomena are interconnected. So this is why we do need the center to tackle what's going on with the heliosphere. So to have these different expertises helping us understand. We also, a very important piece, and the SHIELD webinar is a part of it, is to try to make space science and in general a diverse voices to the STEM field. And we all know this is a challenge, and we have lots of different activities. And the SHIELD webinar stand in one of the activities, as I was just talking to Cherilynn, to make space science more human, to hear our personal trajectories. So it's not science talks, it's just to hear that you can connect. Oh, I am like that person as well. We also have an arm that has testimonials that we started in phase 1, and we are hoping in the fall AGO to kick it again with Sanlin Buxner, our director for broader impact, and Nick Ross, our deputy. We are going to restart this activity where we're interviewing early career folks, grad students, postdocs, young researchers, telling us their trajectory. So we call it testimonials, and we call this umbrella. You can be what you can see. We're trying to make it visible, these different trajectories. So you can go to our website and check some of these videos. They're very heartwarming. And if you want to participate, even if you're not part of SHIELD, please email us, because we will be recruiting people from all sorts of walks of life to be part of these testimonials. We're having lots of events this fall. We had Sarah Gibson in September. Now we have Cherilynn Morrow talking about the outreach for the Eclipse. And in November, we have Lika Guatakurta talking about We Are All Living Stars. Send speaker suggestions for the spring. We're still trying to figure out the line for the spring. We also have a coffee chat that Nick Ross, our deputy director, is leading. The next one will be September 29, 4 p.m. You don't have to be part of SHIELD to be part of this coffee chat. it's not, people like myself, big PIs are not allowed. That is great. We are just shut out of it. So you have a safe space to talk about your challenges and opportunities and network. So it's for emerging early careers. They share advice about science, career, and etc. Okay, this is we are pretty active in the social media. Nick added our new, how do you call that? You can tell I'm old. I forgot how to call this symbol here.
QR code.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. And so you can scan and know our activities. We are going to roll out also a list for friends of Shield that want to know what we're doing. And you can go to here and subscribe and start getting news from Shield. But we are also in Facebook and LinkedIn, etc. Okay, I am going to stop sharing and give the floor to Cherilynn.
Thank you, Morrow, and it's great to speak with you directly for the first time, which is wonderful. And I have been a colleague with Nick Gross and Cherilynn Buxner for many, many years. Really good people that you have on your team there. And Cherilynn is involved in our work as an evaluator. And we are in a funded collaboration, I believe, Punch Outreach and Shield.
We are, and I was going to mention about Punch, but it's good. Yeah.
That will unfold here with time. So I really appreciate the spirit of this seminar series, this webinar series, and you'll see that we are quite allied with the spirit of humanizing heliophysics in this way. And so on we go. You will get from this certainly information about outreach activities for your Eclipse events. There are many, many great activities that have come before us. We have endeavored the outreach program embedded in the NASA Punch mission. We have endeavored to really build on that foundation and do some new and innovative things. So I hope that you will see something that you have not seen before in regards to activities that you can use either with your family, or if you are part of a larger event, you will have a lot of fun with some of these activities, I think. So stay tuned, and I am going to try to infuse a little bit about my journey from scientific research to being a leader in science engagement, particularly as it pertains to outreach efforts embedded in scientific research environments. I think it's really healthy for the culture of science to embed outreach efforts. That itself helps to humanize us and make a better culture. That's a topic for another conversation. I want to wish you a happy equinox. This morning in Chaco Canyon, in northwestern New Mexico, they are celebrating the sunrise. They celebrated the sunrise this morning, and I'm here for once. Normally I'm out there watching the sunrise interact with the architecture. Here what we see is what happens with a gnomon when a gnomon is just a stick in the ground or something sticking up. Then you follow the shadow over the course of the day, and during the equinox, this turns out to be a straight line, which is quite delightful and wonderful. So that yellow arrow shows you where this tripod is located, and the gnomon is this stanchion. And this shadow, these stones, are tracking the shadow there from late morning to early afternoon. So you can see that children are delighted. Cherylynn's kids also, but also our colleague Duke Johnson, who's the director of Clark Planetarium in Salt Lake City. These are his boys, and they enjoyed finding a gnomon in the bathroom, as you might notice, to determine that at the equinox, these stones are straight. And of course, at other times of year, they are curved or either toward the gnomon or away from it, depending on whether it's summer or winter. So this is kind of a delightful demonstration along the north-south. Can you all see my cursor? I just want to be sure. Yeah, so along the north-south, this is east-west wall to modern precision in Pueblo Bonito. This covers a few acres. You couldn't even resolve a human being in this scale here. Over 600 rooms in the largest great house in the Chaco culture, a region of the Four Corners. Just wanting to say that that's a very simple thing to set up yourself. We don't need to package it as an activity. It's a fun demonstration where people can be involved wherever Eclipse events occur if you got the right ground for it. We will be in Chaco Canyon for the annular eclipse upcoming. We were there for the May 2012 annular eclipse, which occurred at sunset. There you see some images of annularity and the partially eclipsed sun setting on the right side. I'm actually teaching about what makes for an eclipse using the real setting sun with a 3-generation Apache family in the plaza of Pueblo Bonito. So that was a very memorable event in Chaco Canyon at that time. And this year, of course, there is also the famous Albuquerque Balloon Festival going on at the same time, October 14th, the last weekend of the Balloon Festival. So both NASA and NOAA will be webcasting from the Balloon Festival, and will be operating with visitors. Punch Outreach people will be both at the Balloon Festival and here in Chaco Canyon. Lots of fun in Chaco Canyon. Just wanted to show you another trick that doesn't require any special equipment. Look at the elbow pinhole projections you can have. If you notice there, this is my shadow on this wall over here inside this plaza. This is a picture that was taken just moments before. These pictures are within minutes of each other. We have a really powerful synthesis of explanation for pinhole projections. It's fascinating. It's like a master's dissertation on pinhole projection. I encourage you to go to the QR code that I'll show you at the end if you really, really want to understand pinhole projection. And this particular guided inquiry will allow you to understand how what you see in pinhole projection in my armpits is related to what you would see through solar protection glasses in that image in the lower right. Notice those are not the same, and yet they are of the same phenomenon. So what's going on with that inversion? And some of our activities are really great illustrations for understanding and putting pinhole projection together with what you see with solar protection glasses. Let's see. There we go. All right, so most of you on the call probably know, and I just want to say, what is punch? Here, the polarimeter to unify the corona and heliosphere, 4 suitcase-sized spacecraft in low Earth orbit. The 4 cameras can observe the entire inner heliosphere, just a fraction of what SHIELD concerns itself with. So we're concerned with imaging the inner heliosphere between the outer solar corona and Earth orbit. So it's like a SOHO C3 field of view with the coronagraph and then 3 wide field imagers that can image the solar wind features between sun and Earth every 4 minutes. So it's a kind of unprecedented capacity to monitor and have a global view of the corona and solar wind. 3D imagery of the solar wind structures are enabled by the fact that we're doing polarimetry, and there'll be a pioneering capacity for storm tracking and space weather monitoring with punch. So it really is going to be getting the best imagery we've ever had of how various types of space weather evolve from the time it leaves the sun to the time that it gets to Earth orbit. Sometimes our PI, Craig DeForest, likes to say it's a revolution in space weather monitoring akin to the Earth weather monitoring we obtained when we started putting satellite imagers in space to look down at the Earth. So we can tell when this stuff is going to meet the people and property of space-based assets. So our outreach theme is ancient and modern sun watching. And it has these three elements that you see in the yellow circles here on the left. NASA heliophysics missions, not to be confined to Punch. We also have a funded collaboration with Parker Solar Probe and an intellectual affinity here with Solar Orbiter that are flying in the solar corona. Punch sits back in Earth orbit and takes the big picture. We are focusing the ancient dimension of our sun watching on Chaco Canyon, where I have about 15 years of affiliation, and the various approaches and techniques of sun watching there. And, you know, there's worldwide evidence that all human beings are descended from cultures who observe the sun. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. It was important to survive and thrive to understand those rhythms of the sun. The seasonal rhythms of the sun. And today, of course, our technological society concerns itself with the activity cycle of the sun, another cycle that we need to learn to live well with. We are construing NASA exploration of the sun as a natural extension of the age-old human practice of observing the sun's rhythms and mysteries. And the Chaco Canyon focus, it really has a connection culturally and ancestrally, historically, to about 20 indigenous tribes in the Four Corners region. It's a World Heritage Site, so there's extraordinary evidence of ancient solar observing that's of interest in the region and beyond. We also have this personal sun watching dimension, whether it's everyday sunrises and sunsets. These are images of people in Chaco coming for special sunrises such as occurred this morning. And then the extraordinary nature of the eclipses that we have upcoming, whether they're annual or eclipse-based. So we're really trying with this thematic approach, we're trying to make the NASA heliophysics more personally and culturally relevant to a greater diversity of people. And so there's a kind of a historical and cultural legacy of sun watching that we can build on and consider NASA a natural extension of. So one thing that Punch Outreach and SHIELD broader impact share is the idea of humanizing heliophysics. And I couldn't be more honored to be a part of this crew. Lika was a graduate school chum. We had neighboring closets, we call them broom closets, as offices, as graduate students at the High Altitude Observatory. And Sarah Gibson was a younger person who came later in my graduate career, and I'll say more about that in a second. But with these cards, these Punch team cards, we are attempting to also do a similar thing of making heliophysicists accessible and to younger people, and to show that they have a humanity that goes beyond their leading edge participation in space science. So there is Sarah's card. I believe she used in your previous seminar, which I've reviewed, she used this image and mentioned the cards.
She did.
Yeah, in passing. And there is the back of her cards. You see, we have her role. We have adjectives that she said she would use to describe herself to a younger person. A fun sun fact that you get to choose for yourself. Words that help guide me. There we're getting a little bit more into the human element and what is it that stirs people to do their best work. And that's related to the inspiring animal, which is a great portal for younger learners. You know, the participants in the team cards were asked, you know, what animal has characteristics that help you to do your job well? And so these are Sarah's responses. She answered a much larger survey so we could get a feel for how to work with her to abstract these responses. There are 18 of these cards up online at the QR code, so you can interact with them either as physical objects or in an interactive way online. There is Lika's card, You can scan it, but again, it will be online, so I won't spend a lot of time here. And here is my own card. And what enlivens me is spending a lot of time as a volunteer interpreter in Chaco. And you can see from my answer to my role, the folks that with whom we're collaborating, Native American tribes, Girl Scouts, blind and low vision learners, etc. So I have this attitude that it's the purpose of education to learn the nature of your own gifts and how to use them for good in the world. I share that strongly with Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, which I commend to your attention if you are at all interested and curious about the interface between Indigenous and Western science. So Chaco is a place that has come to mean a great deal to me. I already mentioned that it's a World Heritage Site, and it's loomed large in my personal story and legend because of the way it helps to integrate all the dimensions of self. I want to speak a little bit about this area behind me, but I am blissed out. It started raining. Here's the rainbow. I had just completed a program with some undergraduates who had come to learn about Chaco architecture. So Chaco is a field of integration for me. It takes my science mind, my educator heart, and my sense of wanting to explore the natural and cross-cultural worlds and pulls them all together in one place where I can be expressed. That place behind me here, I am at Pueblo Bonito. I'm standing right here where this little yellow star is, looking down, over the plaza of this large great house. Here is where Pueblo Bonito is in the bigger picture in this aerial photograph. Over here is the second largest great house in a vast 80,000 square mile region that was influenced by this culture 1,000 years ago. And this place in between here has a curved rock that has a marvelous acoustic effect. And I got very curious about this space in between here because I was working on a cultural astronomy team, and we went out and I had the chance to discover this sunset interaction on the winter solstice. And so from this very culturally rich in-between place, I was able to notice that winter solstice sunset, and that has become part of a larger research project by Dr. Andy Morrow, a fellow cultural astronomer. So this excited me. There's a beautiful close-up of it. There's rock art up there. It's an extraordinary place up there, as well as used from this other wonderful place. So I began to do tours at this place. And I began to really deeply understand that this place between the two largest great houses where all the tourists flock to, the place in between that seems empty, but is actually culturally full, is where I wanted to focus some energy and effort. And so I began offering visitors a six-directional, six-sensory experience, multi-sensory experience of the evidence and importance of relationships, interconnectivity, interactivity at the heart of Chaco culture. So what seems to be empty is actually full in terms of where the buildings are placed and their relationship to each other. This is an east-west line between these two largest great houses, and there's a north-south line where there are other buildings up top on this mesa and atop the south mesa of the canyon. So when you stand and echo, you can call hello, and it waits a few seconds, say hello, hello. It's not a weird echo, it's a really conversational echo. The Navajo name for this place is Curved Rock That Speaks. And so the Navajo also have history here, as well as the ancestral Puebloan people who built these great houses. Let's see, I'm struggling with return. There we go. And then it occurred to me, I will say to you all, this place has become very special, and I use my physics, right? I say, okay, guess what? Why do you, let me start over. The prehistoric culture is telling us that relationship and interconnection between buildings is important, and things that seem empty actually are full of important considerations, like sunrises and sunsets at culturally relevant times of year, acoustic effects, rock art, alignments between buildings. So this theme I carried into modern physics. I said, okay, everybody's made mostly of atoms. That's mostly, what's the space in between? You're mostly empty space. Let's touch each other. Why does it feel solid? Why does it feel solid to touch this wall? It feels solid because of the energy and fields and interactions going on between and among the molecules and atoms, right, of that substance. So that empty space is actually what gives us our sense of solid material reality. And so I offer a little modern physics, pulling us to focus more, us Western mindsets, to focus more on the relationship and interconnectedness between things. And then I realized, as I was preparing this presentation this morning, that that's what Punch is about too, right? Punch mission is focused on the, quote, empty space, the void between sun and earth, and really realizing in 3D imagery the fullness of that space in between. And so I loved, I could offer that to you as if I had that already thought through, but actually it arose in preparation this morning. This place was also, this in-between place, the two largest great houses, was photographed in 1929 by the Lindberghs, Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow Lindbergh. Two of my three names, Cherilynn and Morrow, are shared with the wife of the famous Charles Lindbergh. I'm having trouble advancing the slides here for some reason. Anne Morrow Lindbergh is in the back there. I don't know who flew the airplane and who took the pictures, but either person, you know, it's pretty heroic. I was influenced strongly by the book Anne wrote called Gift of the Sea, and I had a chance to meet Anne Morrow Lindbergh in her 80s in Washington when I was at NASA headquarters. I got to tell her the story of the namesake, and I was very privileged at a Women in Aerospace meeting on Capitol Hill to meet this hero of mine, this adventurer and explorer. Here are two other heroes of mine, and I note that both were mentioned in Sarah Gibson's presentation. I think it's fair to say I would not have completed my doctorate without these two women. Let's see, what is it? If you can't be what you can't see, right? And these were early pioneers, both of whom are now in the National Academy, who have meant a great deal to my own trajectory. Ellen Zweibel and Fran Bagen. The Punch team offers more collegiality with women scientists than ever before in my career. Here you see a couple of prominent younger scientists, Sarah, who gave your presentation, your previous presentation, and that's Nikki Weil, our mission scientist. Sarah is the Punch project scientist, and we are there at a site review in San Antonio. For whatever reason, one of the reasons that one of our collaborators is women in STEM, and the Girl Scouts in particular, is because the Punch science team is about 25% women. One day that'll be 50, but you know, 25% is pretty good for a NASA mission. So whatever my CV says, this represents what it feels like to be me. There's a picture of me when I was just finishing grad school over here, the mind of a scientist. I was signing up to go to Les Ouches in the Alps, the French Alps, École d'été de physique théorique. I was so excited. I could use my French and learn all about astrophysical fluid dynamics. The heart of an educator, finding that I loved developing people's minds and hearts in special places like Chaco. And then here's the thing that I feel safe to say in this seminar, and there are many in which I feel safe to say it, is that I feel this soul of a singer and a songwriter. And COVID, one of the gifts of COVID was learning to play the Native American flute. So when Craig DeForest, our principal investigator for Punch, after his mission was funded, said, I'd like to do more than a NASA-funded communications plan that would cover the mission and news media and other public outlets. I want to leverage my mission for more social benefit, for more broadening of STEM participation. Help me light up some kids in the Southwest and beyond. So he recruited me in 2 luncheons at the Tea House in Boulder, Colorado. And he said, write a proposal and we'll submit it to NASA to augment our mission budget. So this is a new approach to mission embedded outreach that I believe answers prior concerns about mission embedded outreach. And it is the topic of a decadal white paper that's out there. It recently, I think, was published in the bulletin. So he said, design an outreach program you would love to implement. So he hired me in phase B. I built a team and we sent in a proposal and we were funded. Sarah welcomed the outreach team. She's very supportive and participates in outreach beautifully, as well as so does Craig. And basically we have integrated the participation among the science, communication, and outreach teams. So here's the team we built. It's a multi-institutional collaborative, Fisk Planetarium, Clark Planetarium in Salt Lake, the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science in Albuquerque, and the Girl Scout Council there. We also, of course, have SWRI headquarters involved and the Girl Scouts of Southwest Texas. Lowell Observatory is part of our collaborative, and the Planetary Science Institute, which is where our evaluator, Dr. Buxner, comes from. We don't have target audiences. We prefer to say this, we collaborate with historically marginalized populations to develop multicultural, multisensory products and events of benefit to everyone. So it's not about targeting and impacting marginalized audiences. It's about including them as collaborators to do better and more enriching things than we would otherwise do for everyone. And so we have been asked, why are you spending so much time with such a small population with Native America? Well, they're helping us reach the rest of the world with some things that will be of benefit to us all. So Laguna and Acoma Pueblo in particular is a very strong partner. We have Hopi consultant, Navajo consultant, and are operating in this Four Corners region, but also radiating out to the world. The team is extraordinary. I will say, here I'm going to say it, I love them. I really love my collaborators. They were handpicked over the years to be, they're all extraordinary leaders in science education. We had a retreat at Chaco and had a sunrise event near this time of year, just a couple of years ago. We were standing on the west side of this great kiva looking to the east. Actually, in this case, we were standing over on the east side looking westward and projected our shadows with the rising sun. We also stood in solidarity with our blind and low vision, our blind participant, Tasneem Al-Shuli, who was feeling for the sun's appearance on the horizon with her hands. And we all closed our eyes and spent a moment trying to sense the sun in another manner. So here are the populations we're collaborating with and learning from, and these are the people who have helped us collaborate on developing the activities that I'm going to be showing you here in a second. So one thing I'd like to draw your attention to in the upper right, these are the hands of Acoma Pueblo 8th graders who were really frustrated by having their back of their hands up. They could not easily make at midday the pinhole projections through the gaps in their fingers. And one young woman turned her hands palms over, and I guess the sensed heat on the palm of her hands made it easier, and suddenly almost everyone in the group of 12 was able to make the circles through those gaps in their fingers and the pinhole projection. So there's an example of something I've carried out to the Astronomical Society of the Pacific and other kinds of conferences, letting the world know that let your learners try more than one way. Any variation of up and down can help embody that pinhole projection phenomenon whenever you want to. On the lower left, you see an example of these thermoform tactile objects, and I'll say more about those in a second. And then, of course, the team cards. And all of these activities are involved in creating a Girl Scout patch in with the two councils that I mentioned earlier in Southwest Texas and in New Mexico. And so we're making an ancient and modern sun watching patch after our logo there. So we'll have live interaction planetarium films, solar observing events, multi-sensory events for blind and low vision, Chaco interpretive events and interpretive materials, Girl Scout patch, and community STEAM events. And so this stuff in the punch bowl that's being developed online, and I'll point you to later, will help enliven any type of event like this, whether there's an eclipse or whether there's not. So again, the point in the upper left, that our efforts to be more inclusive are leading us to more enriching arts integrated, multicultural, multisensory outreach products and events for all, by collaborating with folks who are historically marginalized and activating and amplifying their voices. Here's some images from a school visit at the Pueblo of Yakima with these 8th grade science students. We're a bicultural team. A great hero for our project is Mr. Joe Aragon, who is a retired math and physics teacher. He comes to every punch science meeting. He's a would-be PhD scientist who decided to go back to his home and train kids in a way that does not excite the polarities between Indigenous culture and Western science culture, and that allows them to stay connected to their culture while learning about NASA science. So that's a really big and important effort for us. There you see the team cards in action on the lower left. And here is an activity that, working with the blind and low vision community, developed these tactile representations of the solar corona, also led to developing an activity called Seeing with Your Hands, where, and I'll say more about that second, for sighted people, a synesthetic activity where you don't see it in advance, you don't see what you're touching and feeling, and then you want to try to determine what is it you're touching and feeling given a set of 6 images. Also, that horizon at Casa Rinconada, that great kiva that I showed you earlier, where basically, where does your birthday sunrise occur? So that's another tabletop activity that is available on our website. Here's a little bit better look at the setup for Seeing with Your Hands. There's a tactile placed inside the box. The learner doesn't see it, but they have this kind of thing visible to them, and they're feeling and selecting which of these images are they sensing. It's remarkable how bad we are at that. So we've done a lot of field testing that help us understand what hints that we have to give. This is a petroglyph in Chaco Canyon that may be a representation of an active solar corona during the 1097 total solar eclipse. Venus was off in that direction, and this strong tail here could be the vestige of a coronal mass ejection. We're noting that this motif, curly Q motif that appears in this rock art, is also in pottery, and that has initiated a study of pottery of the period to see, did this motif appear prior or after 1097 or during? What can we know about whether the representation of rock art was trying to represent prominences not to scale, or other, the kinks and curls and distortions, right, of otherwise radial structure, is quite interesting to think about and interpret. That's a whole other presentation, but I wanted to mention it in passing. This is the site where that petroglyph is. It's on the southeastern facet of what we're now calling Rock of the Sun, instead of 29 SJ 514, which is a research designation. We got permitted on this site to do all kinds of photogrammetry, reflectance transmission imaging, and basically are going to be making use of this in kiosk models and planetarium films, and hopefully some infiniscope lessons. The northeastern facet has a spiral. If you stand in front of that spiral, you see interesting sunrises on the horizon that are likely to be predictive of the summer solstice, another important time of the year. This particular sunrise is predictive and rolls right up the side of that rock. The southwestern facet, if you're standing in here, the winter solstice is predicted by this sunset interaction. So there's plenty of evidence for the sun watching context of this petroglyph, which some have called the flying spaghetti monster, or an octopus, or a tick, or a flower, or, you know, if you just ask visitors to inquire and say what they see, those kind of answers come before the active solar corona during a total solar eclipse. But the sun watching context lends a fair amount of credence to that interpretation. Independent research has revealed that this was a time, a probable time of high solar activity, and that's based on carbon-14 considerations and the galactic cosmic rays that the great heliosphere is protecting us from. That data have suggested that right around 1098 was the maximum of solar activity. Oh yes, the raven's nest. These nestlings were our supervisors for one of our early photo shoots there in Chaco. So I want to shift gears here and just focus the rest of my talk on these activities. This is our 3-hole punch pinhole projector, and we are disseminating this on a very large scale. And if anyone listening to this seminar live, I'd like to offer you to receive a stash of these to support your events if you would like to. This is a new take on pinhole projection, and I strongly encourage you to give it its fullest benefit. You can demonstrate that you see round images of the sun through non-round holes. You can use it. You don't need an eclipse for this to give you several ahas. And so there's a whole new window of an enjoyment, as many of you know, of appreciation of the natural world and pinhole projection occurring there, the history of art with the camera obscura history, and from prehistoric times to the present, pinhole projection is wonderful, and we want to kind of make a renaissance and enlivening of the pinhole projection. There's an example of how pinhole projection happens in the natural world. And I want to say, when you're during an eclipse, it's easy to notice. When it's not an eclipse, very highly educated people, you say, well, what are you trying to get me to see? When we look at shadows, there's a tendency to just look at the dark parts. And so, believe it or not, folks can be looking right at pinhole projections of the sun and really not perceive the space in between. There we are with the space in between the sun and earth, and the space in between the 2 largest great houses in the Chaco system. So this space in between, this way in which the irregularly shaped gaps between the leaves are causing round shapes. And so this was inspiration, of course, to make different shapes. When you hold it up close to a projection surface, you see the triangle, round, and square. And that's the cool thing. What you can do with you can hold your hand behind it and ask young learners, what shapes do you see? And young learners are immediately engaged because they know their shapes and they love to tell you. All right, so they're already engaged. Then you say, okay, what do you think is going to happen when the sun passes through onto this projection surface? Best to demonstrate first before disseminating these projectors. Please don't pass them out as swag, because they're a really awesome learning tool, and demonstrating them before giving them to kids. In fact, kids tend to look through the holes at the sun. So there's a safety issue as well to demonstrating this first. And so they say, okay, well, I think that when the sun shines through onto that projection surface, we're going to get triangle, square, and round. And so you hold it close enough to the projection surface so that that is the case, right? So you see those shapes. Yay, validation. Then you get their eyes on that projection surface. Okay, watch carefully on the projection surface, not on the projector, on the projector surface. As you, the demonstrator, pull it away slowly and watch those triangle, square holes turn all to round. And as you pull it back further, you can even see that those round shapes get larger than the holes themselves. Second aha. Third aha. Look through the solar protection glasses or a solar protection viewer and see how round the sun is. Right? And it turns out that unto itself is aha. And you'll hear those three ahas make this worth facilitating in a closer way than we tend to use pinhole projection. And then there's an indoor demo where we can control the shape of the light source and show other shapes and prove that this is actually imaging the shape of the light source, just simple holes. Oh, so this is just a relief from all my jabbering. Vivian White, who many of you know as a leader in informal science education in the country at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, sent me this. And talk about warming one's heart. All the administrative hassles are worth it when you get an image like this where a 4-year-old can't put it down. Quickly, let me show you this. Worth not just on a rainy day, using our pinhole projector. And this is Mr. Aragon, by the way, at an Acoma Pueblo-based Sun Fun Day. This is easy, right? $10 lamp, less, $8 on sale at Target or any place. LED flat surface. You can change the shape of the light source by using these little masks. In this case, a star. And close up to the projection surface, you'll still get that same triangle, round, and square. Pull it away and you'll see the shapes of the light source. This works with ceiling lights too, by the way. We discovered that the Adler Planetarium ceiling lights are star-shaped at the AGU last year. And so strongly encourage you to make this a complement to outdoor use if you have that possibility. These are Girl Scouts interacting with that Chaco horizon, seeing with your hands, and specific kinds of activities related to the cards. These are not just playthings. There are specific inquiries about teamwork, seeing yourself in space science. A diversity of people are represented in those 18 cards, a diversity of roles, not just science and engineers. We've got web developer, we got financial analyst, we've got outreach director, as well as scientists and engineers and scientific program managers. So those, the cards that were put together for that. And this little girl here fell in love with the card of Mr. Aragon. And we have these create your own cards. Kids love to do this, to fill in their own card inspired by the cards that they see. And she chose the animal of peacock. And she worked with her parents and talked with her parents. I had a whole family conversation about what were the attributes of peacock that made her card important. And for her, it was that she was strong, smart, and colorful. For the more nerdly among you, which I imagine is all of us, I certainly am a nerdly girl. The F shape is a brilliant. Put an F shape cutout up here and check out the inversion upside down. And even little kids can get the right to left inversion. See, the flags of the F are pointing over this way. Oop, but over here now they're pointing this way toward you. And so once again, even with an F, you get the triangle, square, and round, but you get this inversion. And this activity helps you explain why you see something different between looking through your solar protection glasses and looking in a pinhole projection. There is an inversion, and I mentioned that activity at the outset that you can find. Okay. Here we go. So here's the magic QR code. This is the link to our outreach products page. It's still in development, but everything that I mentioned today is there. You can also get there by just going to the outreach tab on our homepage and selecting outreach products. And so it should be fairly straightforward, and you go in here and there are facilitator guides and so on. So I want to conclude, I'll come back to this page, but I want to conclude that if I have the mind of a scientist, the heart of an educator, and the soul of a songwriter, Punch outreach direction and creating something that I'd love to implement, which Craig and Sarah have given the opportunity to do. They've created for Punch Outreach the most fertile ground in 30 years of professionalism for doing an outreach program that really is going to benefit a lot of people. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Cherilynn. That was very inspiring. I'm having ideas too.
Good.
That we can explore with Sanlin and Nick at Shield. So usually at that point, we don't have a whole lot of time for the top of the hour, but we have some for questions. I see a question from Aaron and from Milo. And usually, Nick, unmute them. Aaron is asking, how do we get?
So Aaron asked the question, and I think Sanlin answered it in chat about obtaining a bunch of materials, and of course there's the QR code. So I don't know if we want to follow up on that.
Okay,
and bring Milo up, and
because
Aaron.
we don't have a lot of time, so let's bring up Milo. Right.
Okay, I'm gonna be short. So, Cherilynn, very nice talk. I always enjoy your talks. Thank you. I'm curious from the map if you see where the Chaco community is located. It is very close geographically to Albuquerque, and well, mostly also this year recently with the Oppenheimer movie and all of that, we have learned how Albuquerque played an important role in all the Manhattan Project. And I was wondering if that part of the atomic bomb development history have made that collaboration with the Chaco community challenging. Is that a topic that has been discussed when collaborating with the local communities there?
That's a really interesting connection there. Milo, I'd probably direct that to nuclear energy or something and talk about the sun. But it's also true that not avoiding these topics is important too. What comes up when we teach Acoma Pueblo children about solar radiation or particle radiation or electromagnetic radiation is their association with radiation is the nearby uranium mines. Right. And so there's some disambiguation that needs to happen there when we're speaking about the forms of radiation that emanate from the sun, and radiation as they know it to be a harmful thing down the road. So I haven't come into direct kind of difficulty with that particular history. But I think it may lie underneath if we were to have a conversation about it.
Thank you, Cherilynn.
And I see, I don't see the questions here, but I see Howard Singer is unmuted. So did you have a question?
Should I stop sharing now? Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
No question. This is great.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yes.
In terms of your challenges, I had the same question for Sarah, and usually I ask for the presenters. In terms of your mentors or, early on, and I think it's not surprise that your mentors or your people that you look was Frank Bagenal and Ellen Zweibel, there were not a lot. And
right.
they were very influential. Exactly, they were very influential. So I'm just wondering, in general, when you were starting your science career, when you look around, and it was before even thinking to go to grad school, how did you, who did you look for, and how did you, solve any problems you had?
That's a big question, Rav. Can I have another seminar?
Yes. Of course. Yeah, anytime.
But the truth is I was inspired by the space program, right? I grew up with the astronauts. Of course, there weren't any women astronauts, but I aspired to be one nevertheless. So space became a focus of my attention, and that was so powerful that I overcame a lot of things just based on having a vision of that. Even if there weren't role models, there was like, I want to be involved in space exploration, right? And that helped me overcome a lot of things. Like, I thought I was an athlete and a scholar, and in high school I was teased as a jock and a brain, you know, which were derogatory, right? Just the kinds of things. And so, you know, in college, I was the only woman in my physics class, right? I was one of 2 women in my graduate class of 20. I was the first woman ever hired at Georgia State University to either be, you know, education focused or to be a woman in the department. So, and it's a whole other topic of conversation, what the challenges with those things are and how you overcome them. But there was this vision, and I mentioned this, you know, mind, heart, and soul dimension. The culture was challenging, and I decided, wow, look over here in education and outreach, I can still be in touch with the research community and have the conversations and the interaction with the scientists that I enjoy. And I can embed an education and outreach program that allows me to be a little more broad in my efforts, right? And be curious.
Right. I guess at the heart of the question is the humanizing of the space.
The humanizing.
Especially when you come up and you look around and you're alone in terms of recognizing yourself, how this is so critical.
Yes.
Yeah, that is great. We are at the top of the hour, so I think we have to wrap
I apologize.
up. No, it was fantastic. I just see one quick, maybe last question we take from, if I pronounce it correctly, Barry Tewaldi, talking about if you have a plan to help students from Ethiopia, please.
Could you repeat that question, please? If there's
Berhe Tewaldi is asking if he was very interested in the presentation, you have a plan to help students from Ethiopia.
Holly, we don't have a current plan to help students in Ethiopia, but I have a colleague who has done a lot of work I believe in Ethiopia, Deb Scherer, who's now retired. So if the person attending is connected with her, please do reach out to me, and let's see what we can do.
That's fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. And I guess we will have to have you back again to talk about the personal trajectory.
Well, yeah, in more detail. And
in more detail.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
maybe I'll attend some of these coffee chats, Morrow, first to get warmed up for that.
That would be lovely.
Okay.
Okay, folks. Bye, and see you in the next Shield webinar with Lika. Okay, bye, folks.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.